It's just another night for Supernatural Girls. Real stories, real answers to life's biggest supernatural mysteries. And now for another exciting interview with paranormal experts from this world and others. Here's your host, paranormal researcher Patricia Baker, on the one, the only Supernatural Girls.
Welcome, everyone, to another exciting episode of Supernatural Girlz Radio. I'm your host, Patricia Baker, and I'm here with my co-host all the way from Tucson, PK, Patricia Kirkman. What's happening, PK?
Well, we're just having the devil's heat coming about. We're about 97 this afternoon.
Whoa!
And it's supposed to be 98, 99 this weekend.
Oh, my goodness. It sounds like it's a little warm for this time of year out there, isn't it?
Well, it kind of fits the hell that the world's in right now, doesn't it?
Well, we've got cool New England weather as usual, so I guess we're not at the hellmouth yet. So we're just going to have to take it from you that that's what it's like out there. My God.
Oh, it is. But it's supposedly going to cool down again in a few days. I'm not going to hold my breath. I think we're going to continue to go forward. But it's okay. It's okay.
Yeah, you got air conditioning. You'll survive out there, right?
That's exactly it. I don't leave the house.
I bet you don't. Well, look, we all want to know because we've got Russian jets coming off our coast here of Alaska. Mm-hmm. We've got all kinds of more and more crazy things going on. What's happening in the numbers?
Well, one of the things I think that we really need to take a look at, everybody's looking for perfect right now. I'm sorry, but it's not there. Everything going on around us is with drastic and major changes taking place. On top of that, remember, anytime we go into a 7-day or month, year, we have major issues. Tomorrow's going to be a 7-day. People aren't going to sleep well tonight. Somewhere between now and late tomorrow, the next day, there's going to be some secrets that are going to come out in some fashion that is unexpected. There is going to be difficulty, as they say, sleeping for everybody, and everyone is getting this feeling that you're on the edge of the cliff and somebody's running up to push you off. Don't be surprised. There's a lot of things happening. Bill Riley just got fired. What else can go wrong, right?
Gosh, I can't imagine what in the world went wrong there. That was such a hit show. What in the world was he up to?
Well, a little hanky-panky from what they say, but that's neither here nor there. The month is about sexuality, sensuality, games, playing, taking a risk. And tomorrow, secrets are going to be made known. So there's something more coming out that we hadn't counted on. But it's coming in different areas. So it's really hard to figure out let's put it this way. We could be investigating Sherlock Holmes, get the microscope out, look what we can. Nothing's going to look normal.
Wow. Well, we'll have to wait and see, I guess. Tomorrow's right around the corner, and we love having mysteries revealed. That's one of the things we really like. So hopefully it'll be cool stuff we find out about. We're going to find out some cool stuff tonight on the show. That's
definitely.
For
sure. And tonight we're not going to do any real sleeping. There's not anyone that's going to have a real sound sleep. And part of what we're talking about tonight is opening doors for people to start looking out. And tomorrow we're going to get this little ring around the collar where everybody's going to get a choke chain, because nothing is going to be real, not from what we see and not what we feel. So I want to hear the good stuff that we've got from our guest tonight.
I know. We have a great guest tonight, John DeSouza. He is a real X-Man, former FBI agent, and he knows the deal on a lot of stuff. But tonight we are talking about Antarctica. He's going to fill us in. We're going to get all the details on what is happening down below the ice. So I can't wait to bring him on. Gosh, it's going to be a great show.
Fits right in with what we're talking about, secrets being made known to us.
I know. And I wanted to also catch everybody up that we've given you a list of urban disappearances as well as national park disappearances. We're looking at those lists to see if there's anything numerologically that stands out that might give us a clue as to what's happening to these people. George and I are continuing our work. We're also talking about bringing in another guest of ours to work with us on this, Ed Edwards.
Right.
Because he is the man with a battery, and we're thinking he might be a good person to bring into our skull sessions to see if we can reach further into the dimensions and find these people that have gone missing. And we know that they're still alive, some of them. And these are the people we're trying to get back. So we're going to call upon Ed and see if we can use his battery to get to these people. Maybe we can bring them back home through that portal. That's what we're going to work on. So there was just another body found in Boston, another young man. Mm-hmm. Same kind of MO, same mysterious disappearance, no real cause of death, found in water. So it follows the pattern.
Right.
And it's just the saddest thing. I feel terrible for the parents. I think it's a nightmare beyond belief, but also because this is not a human-to-human thing as far as we know. But again, there's something going on in Antarctica I'm going to ask John about, but that may have a connection to this. We're going to ask him. He might know. So we're going to find out.
You know, from just what I've gotten with the different names for the urban list and the national list, the one thing I've noticed is predominantly it's males.
Yes, that's true.
And in the list that I have, there's only one female on it. But on the urban list, I'm finding that the majority that we look at are in the 24 year of age range.
Yeah, and that is strange, isn't it? It's a certain range. Yes, so we're going to get more and more information. We're going to keep digging on this because we have the public records on some of these cases, and we're just going to keep going on that side of it, and then we're going to go on the skull side of it with George and Ed and see what else we can do to see what kind of trouble we can create. All right, we're good at that.
Oh, not us. Let's put it this way. How big can the stick be that we're stirring with?
Yeah, I know, really. It's a broomstick.
Yes, and some of us may ride it, but it's okay.
That's right. So we've got some great stuff on our Facebook page. Everybody should go take a look. We've got the mystery booms in Maine, of all places.
Yeah, that was so strange.
Now it. They said one person said a shower door exploded in their home from this big mysterious boom that went off. They don't know what's causing these noises, these loud noises, but we've talked about them before on the show. People all over the world have been hearing them. So anyways, go to our Facebook page, take a look at that story. That's a good one. We also have an unusual photograph. And there is a photograph of linen mill girls, which was taken in the 1900s. But there's something a little off about the photo. We'll see if you can pick it out. But it's right there on our Facebook page, and it is wild. And again, this is back in the 1900s. So take a look at that. And then we also have the Black Knight satellite again.
Yep, here it comes.
I love that thing. I don't know what it is, but I love it. And in fact,
can't get a ride in it.
Yeah, I don't know what it is, but somebody said it had been shot down a while back, and I was really upset to hear that. I'm glad it's not true. However, one of the things that's being reported is that it has left its orbit. It's now coming closer to the Earth. So they again saying this thing's under intelligent control, and we don't know again who's doing it, but it's obviously not us. And we've heard that the government's trying to point us in a different direction. Look away. There's nothing to see here. But in fact, the Black Knight is really cool, and there is something to see here. And we want to know what the Black Knight satellite is. And it was talked about by Tesla, it was discovered years and years ago. They say it's very ancient, and it's been there for a long time. I don't know how they know that, but it is just a really, really cool thing. And it's a very odd shape. Go to our Facebook page, you'll see a picture of it. And it's like an elongated, I don't even know how to describe it. You're just going to have to go to our Facebook page and take a look. It's very cool. So there you have it. That's what's going on in the world today of the paranormal. And now, all right, we have had John on the show before. He's a terrific guest, very knowledgeable, knows everything about these subjects. And last time we had him on the air, he said, I want to come back and talk to you about Antarctica and all the heads of state that are going there. And we're like, what's going on down there? We got to find out. So John cleared his schedule for tonight to be with us, and we're thrilled to have him. Again, he's former FBI agent, and he is the X-Man, is what he's known as. He was always interested in getting X-File cases when he worked for the FBI, and he's still doing that same work today. So, John, welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you, Patricia, PK. It's great to be with you guys again.
Oh,
it's wonderful.
We're so happy to have you with us. It's amazing what you're going to have for us tonight, though. Woo.
Thank you.
We are excited. So, now the Antarctica has a very interesting and mysterious history, and we've been following up on a number of elements about it. But where do you want to start in educating us about what's happening down there?
Well, people just need to have the context and background of Antarctica it's the southernmost continent in the world. It's basically the fifth largest continent on the planet. It's forever. I mean, if you know Australia, it's twice the size of Australia. It's a very significant landmass, and it's usually almost all of it is covered with ice and snow. And if you want to know how many residents it has as its population, the official count is an average of only 5,000 temporary residents. That's all the scientific community that's established there all the time. So the personnel there is just it's incredibly small as far as how many people are there, and in proportion to the attention that has been given to this continent in the last few years, it's been extraordinary, absolutely extraordinary. One thing I'd like people to do is Google Lima, capital L-I-M like Mary, A like Apple, Lima, and that is Landsat Image Mosaic of Antarctica, and it is put out by NASA. It is NASA's official satellite imagery of Antarctica, and it is updated all the time. It has some of the same images that you can see on Google Earth when you use Google Earth to go to look at certain latitudes and longitudes at Antarctica. If you want to go look at the pyramids that are a new development, these pyramids that have been uncovered at Antarctica, and that are larger than the pyramids of Giza.
Yeah, I've seen photographs. They are massive.
They are extraordinary. Now, one thing that Lima and Google Earth have in common is that both systems show blur-outs, whiteouts, and grayscale alterations of certain areas, certain things that they don't want us to see. And you can go check it right now. Mm-hmm. There's certain areas that are just blurred out. They are altered. They are manipulated so that you can't see certain things that we have been told about, like the pyramids that, like you said, there's been so many photographs put out on the pyramids, and there have been many other things. But most of what has been coming out of Antarctica is masses and masses of information. Like I talk about in my book, The Investigators, we're living in an age now where the secrecy system that the governments have used is basically obsolete. We're now living in an open source information system where you really can't keep events secret anymore. You just can't. It's not possible. It's not practical. So most information is in the public. It's in the cyberspace. It's all out there, and it's just a question of being able to filter it, to do what we call information parsing, data parsing, where you just separate the garbage from what is real. And so we see that large institutions like NASA and even Google are still trying to keep information from us by blurring out images and keeping us from seeing. One of the things is that there's an opening. There's an opening in the earth that is almost a mile across. It's just a giant hole it's just there, and it is completely blurred. We can't see it. We're not allowed to see it. And it's that way. It's blurred out on both on Google Earth and in Lima as well. There is there's scientific information coming out all the time, constantly. And of course that started with Admiral Byrd when he took the Navy flotilla down there to supposedly challenge the Nazis. Because the Nazis supposedly had a base called New Schwabenland back in the 1930s, and he was taking a flotilla there, and apparently something went wrong, and and also he used the cover story when Admiral Byrd was taking an American flotilla there to it wasn't even to challenge the Nazis that supposedly had a base in Antarctica. The cover story was there was mineral wealth of all kinds at Antarctica, and that's what they were going there to discover.
That was their cover story.
Yes, but if that had been true, you wouldn't have needed all the military hardware that he took to go there and work on mining and mineral rights and so forth.
Now, there was a lot of lives lost in Project High Jump, right?
Supposedly there was. But again, the level of secrecy that was going on at that time, back before the internet, when secrecy was still possible, was tremendous amount of secrecy. So yeah, supposedly he lost a large number of the ships that were with him, and the only clue that we know as to what happened is when Admiral Byrd made some sort of mention that he was concerned about these UFO type ships that can go from one point on the Earth to the other pole of the Earth in just a blink of an eye. And he was very concerned that we need to shore up the defenses of America to be able to defend against vehicles that have supernatural abilities. And that was all he was allowed to say. He couldn't say much more. So it was the Project High Jump was the last time that we sent a major, until now, it was the last time that there was a major American military adventure going over to Antarctica. There is supposedly, but now we have so much information coming out. Again, it's because we're living in this open source society this time, about the entrance, the one I just mentioned. We have stairs that have been exposed, that are these massive stairs that they say is larger than the stairs at the Capitol building in Washington, D.C. And we also there's an entrance, supposedly, to like a cave-like entrance that they're saying is as tall as the Statue of Liberty. And you could just, and again, this is being blurred out, but there have been people on the ground that have been able to put this information out, because that's the only information we can trust at this point, is just information from people on the ground there. Now that there's Lockheed Martin is there hiring workers, anybody who needs a job, they are hiring at Lockheed Martin at Antarctica for workers.
Wow, really?
Yeah. So
workers to do what? I mean, are they looking for scientists, engineers, construction workers? What are they looking for?
Everything. All of those and more. They are looking for every technical skill. It's almost like they're building a city down there. That's what it sort of seems like, because they're looking for high-tech, low-tech workers, just manual laborers, everything. And so they are hiring. It's not just them. There are other companies are hiring down there as well. The amount of material that is going, if you go to Google Earth and go look at the coast, and go look at the coast off of the the peninsula. There's the Antarctic Peninsula is where most of the travel goes in and out to Antarctica. It's like if you imagine the whole continent as a sort of like a face or a head, it's like the little thumb. It's like the thumb that's just sticking out of there. Mm-hmm. And that thumb, the Antarctic Peninsula, that's where most of the cargo goes in and out, everything that happens. And if you go look at Google Earth, like right now, just a moment in time, you'll see all kinds of ships and carriers going in and out to a level that is not to service 5 or 10 or several thousand people. It looks like it's to a level to service millions of people, because there's so many ships going in and out at any time in the Antarctic Peninsula. It's amazing what's happening now. So
Well,
yeah,
it
there's
is. But why? I mean, why now? I mean, is it because, I mean, like you said, they can't keep things from us like they used to, and the ice is melting, so they can't hide things like they used to. Even though they can blur things out on Google Earth and Lima and everything else, we can find some semblance of an image that will give us a hint as to this. But there, as you mentioned, there's all kinds of rumors about this place, and one of them is that they have found ET bodies, huge ET bodies that are in stasis, and they're trying to decide whether to wake them up or not.
Yes, actually, the other day, and I've been collecting these. I've been having web crawlers collecting information from blogs, bulletin boards, all kinds of message boards and things like that, where people are talking about this. People from the ground, people who have worked there. Some of them work there, and some of them are not going back for whatever reason. And so that's the only reliable information that there is. And the way, I really, that rumor, I remember that came out. That came out several, I would say maybe like a month or so ago. Mm-hmm. And about the bodies, all kinds of hybrid bodies being found.
Yes.
Apparently in a frozen state.
And tall,
Yes.
tall beings like 10, 12 feet tall, which would possibly account for the height of those stairs and the height of the doorway that they are talking about. That there's, I mean, why else would you have such large structures like that unless you had large beings that needed them to be that size?
Right. But I want people to bear in mind that it's quite possible that that could just be, those beings being found could be true, but it could be just an entranceway to something that actually is the hollow earth, that is an actual living civilization further in, and that's always a possibility also.
Well, it certainly is. I mean, I heard from someone else who's much like you in one of the alphabet agencies. I won't say which one, but he told me that they know for a fact that there is an alien civilization living underneath in the earth, and they don't want anything to do with us. And that's what I was told. So again, this is hearsay. It's from somebody, but it's, again, somebody's a pretty reliable source about these kinds of things. And they don't like us. They don't want anything to do with us. I don't blame them. But, who'd want anything to do with us, really?
Yeah.
God.
Yeah. There was some information. I call it raw data. You call it rumors. I call it raw data because it's important information that could have a chance of being true. Whereas if you get information from the fake news, mainstream media, I always consider it 100% untrue, completely useless. Mm-hmm. At least with this raw data, these what we can term them rumors. At least there's a chance that they're true, and even if they're not true, they can be revealing something important as well. So I remember there was some raw data that when John Kerry, the Secretary of State, mm-hmm. he went and he visited during the election, actually. He was sent there like an emergency type thing. And he took off, he went there, and he visited the site that he was supposed to visit. And his cover story was global warming, which, even the reporters who on the ground who heard him say that, they immediately didn't believe it. And as soon as he left, though, from Christchurch, New Zealand, because that's the entranceway and the egress also from that particular region. It's Christchurch, New Zealand. It's called the face to Antarctica.
Okay.
You can't just go directly to Antarctica. It doesn't work like that. You have to go through some sort of civilized entranceway. And Christchurch is the usual entranceway. I think there's another one also from South America as well. So as soon as he left from Christchurch, there was this terrible earthquake right at Christchurch, almost as he was leaving the ground, almost as he was going wheels up from the ground. And there was some raw data that people said on the ground. They said that Carrie had been summoned there to be given a message of the kind, and basically the earthquake was sent as a warning that they didn't want him to come back ever again.
Wow. I like these people, whoever they are.
Suspicions confirmed.
Yeah. Isn't that fascinating?
Mm-hmm.
Wow. That is fascinating. Stay away, John, you jerk. We don't want you here. Well, I agree with them. I think that's right. So, but there were other heads of state you mentioned to us that have gone down there to Antarctica. Who else has been there?
Yeah, anyone who is interested should Google strange visitors to Antarctica, or world leaders to visiting Antarctica, and that'll give you quite a list. Ever since Admiral Byrd got the flotilla destroyed and limping back to America in 1947.
And, just to go back to the Admiral, wasn't he then committed to a mental institution? Because I heard he wouldn't stop talking about it, and so eventually they had him committed to make him stop talking about it. Is that true?
There was something that happened along those lines. Yes, I believe there was. However, that didn't stop his secret diary from getting out there. Mm-hmm. And people can Google Admiral Byrd's secret diary, and that has a lot of information in it, and has a lot of interesting stuff about these UFO ships that destroyed his Navy flotilla and forced them to abandon any hopes of going to Antarctica to challenge the Nazi base, which I believe is what he was really doing. So yeah, there was not just him, but there were others who were kind of disappeared because they had too much information about Antarctica at that time. Yeah. Also there was basically the entire religious power of the planet basically went to visit when Russian Orthodox Patriarch of Moscow, Kirill, well, it's pronounced Krill, he's basically the Pope of the entire Eastern Orthodox religion of the planet. And what he did was he went to visit John Paul, the current Pope, current Pope of the Catholic Church at the Vatican. A visit that had not been done between the Russian Orthodox Patriarch and the Pope hadn't happened for 1,000 years. And he went to visit him, and they passed some messages between each other. And apparently the Pope gave him some great message for whoever he was going to see at Antarctica.
Oh my God.
Yeah. And then who's a man in his late 80s. And the trip to Antarctica is very difficult, even for a young person. It's a difficult trip. It's not. Yeah. You have to make about 5 or 6 different stops, and part of it sometimes has to be on military transport, which are the difficult planes to deal with, and you have to go on them. And he made the trip, and he carried messages from the Pope as well. So basically, the entire Roman Catholic Church and the entire Russian Orthodox Church basically sent these messages, brought these messages to whoever is at Antarctica. And people believe there's some kind of alien representative that is taking these visitors and exchanging information with them, like John Kerry and the representatives of earthly religion. And of course, we know about Buzz Aldrin as well.
Right.
The Apollo 11 moon astronaut visitor.
Yes. Oh my God, John, this is so fascinating. Well, listen, we've got questions coming in the chat room. If you have a question for John, you can write it in the chat room at irnchat.com. irnchat.com. We'll ask the question on your behalf. We've got a lot of things to cover here. There's a lot of questions we have about this continent on our planet and what's going on down there. It's fascinating. It's fascinating. And John, we're so grateful that you're here with us tonight to fill us in on all the secret details that we can possibly get out of you. We're going to do it tonight. So in the meantime, go visit our Facebook page, everybody. We're going to take a short commercial break. Take a look at all of our articles. Give us a like and a follow on Facebook. We'd love to have you follow us on Twitter as well, so you can be updated on all of the things that we're doing, the crazy stuff and the normal stuff. You know, there's no normal stuff here. Anyways, you're listening to Supernatural Girlz Radio, everybody. We'll be right back. Welcome back, everyone, to Supernatural Girlz Radio. I'm your host, Patricia Baker, here with my co-host, PK, and our terrific guest tonight, the one and only John DeSouza, the X-Man. He is filling us in on Antarctica. We are getting blown away by what John has to say. John, let's keep going. There's so much to talk about here. So much secrecy, so much stuff going on. World leaders being called, summoned there, is what you said. I like that word. They've been summoned there.
Yes. Yes. So, and one of the things I want to urge your listeners is to please go look at my book, The Investigators, True Tales and Concepts of Supernaturally Gifted Investigators. Just go look on Amazon at the first 50 pages, which is the free sample, and just read those 50 pages, because it's a primer on what real evidence means and what real investigation also, what it means. Because people have been completely ruined by television and CSI as far as what evidence and really means. Because what we were talking about, because of the age that we're living in, the information age, I have to tell you that rumors, or as I call it, raw data, which is one of the things we were talking about, is actually, that's real evidence. That's evidence. The value of it, though, of course, is in question. You know, we can question whether, rumors and raw data is how valuable it might be or not be. But I would argue in this situation where you're looking at anything that comes off the ground in Antarctica, and that's what you're really looking for, I would say third-hand, second-hand information, hearsay, and rumors, raw data, has great value, very great value. Because if you hear the same raw data from several different sources on the ground again and again and again, or it has certain patterns in it that just fit each other again and again, that's the connection of clues right there. And that increases the value of that evidence exponentially right there. I mean, tremendously. So that's just very important and very important.
Yeah, that is. And you've also got another book out, which we talked about last time, the Extradimensionals, great book. People can purchase that on Amazon as well. Now, I've got a question for you, John, from the chat room before we go forward on this, and it's from Starlight, who's asking, are civilians bound by the terms of the Antarctic Treaty? Who can keep an average civilian from traveling there and exploring on their own without any government approval?
That's a great question. Civilians, of course, are not directly bound by any sort of treaty between the governments, like the treaties that agree on what can be done at Antarctica and what can't, and who controls this part of Antarctica, who controls that part. Of course, civilians are not bound, but in reality, of course, when you go there, your own government is going to very highly regulate you, regardless of what you think you're bound by or not. We were just talking about people off the air of people who are interested and want to go visit and who want to go and participate in certain activities over there. And of course, they would immediately fall under the purview of their own government, and their own government would enforce some big restrictions on them. Like I was saying, what good is it to go to Antarctica and participate in a marathon? That's a great event. It's a lot of fun. We can it happens every year. Every year they have very important marathons and charity events that happen in Antarctica, and that lots of people participate in, and it's a very important. But if you can't go there, but if you do go there, you got to try to go look at those pyramids, like Buzz Aldrin did. Buzz Aldrin went there and made a beeline for those pyramids to see.
Go Buzz!
What was really, and he's in his 80s.
Yeah.
And he needed to see what was really going on with those things, because scientists, certain scientists have released statements that those pyramids are natural formations. Talk about a weak cover story. How are you going to look at it?
There's no way they're natural formations.
Exactly. That's like coming upon a house in the woods, a cabin in the woods, and saying, "Oh no, elements just formed that. It just formed by itself."
Sure. Well, now when you talk about the Pope and you talk about these other people passing messages, being summoned, it's again what makes me concerned is that our leaders, our world leaders, they always want to own this stuff. They want to control this stuff. They don't want us to know the real deal. So I hope that's not going to be the case here, John. But what do you think?
Yeah, well, it is the case. All 5 of the big powers are there on the ground with military, and paramilitary forces. So it's kind of a dangerous situation because China is there, the United States, Great Britain, France, I believe, and a couple of others as well. And so it's a bad situation, but they're all kind of trying to work together, and they're all trying to let each other know that they're going to each get their share of this technology when they're finally able to figure out getting it out. Which is something that they are still working on, and they've got the premier companies, global corporations down there that are the greatest experts in dealing with top secret material and black projects. They're all there. DARPA's there, and all these other agencies, and there's something, and I get the feeling that there's things there they cannot figure out, that they still can't figure out. So I think in a sense, things are sort of at a standstill with what they're being allowed to look at. But it does seem like there's some kind of intelligent power there that is ultimately controlling what goes out and what can't go out. So that's where we are with that. And I think people who just go there on the ground and aren't affiliated with any company or with their government, they're going to find that they get very strictly controlled from the moment they arrive, because you have to let them know long before you even get to Christchurch, New Zealand, because there has to be a flight plan filed for you. So if you're going to Antarctica as a private citizen, they are going to know it on the ground over there. And when I say they, I mean the government authorities from the various governments. And chances are one of those governments, some authority, is going to be from the person's country who is visiting, or at least close to it. And they will take dominion of that person when they get there, for sure.
We have heard, and I'm sure you have too, that there was a production crew that went down there and they disappeared.
Wow.
I don't know if they were disappeared, you know what I mean, or if they disappeared. The difference.
Yeah, I wouldn't recommend filming those pyramids or the giant opening into hollow earth, the thing that's supposedly it's like a mile wide that just goes in, or the stairways, the giant stairways that go down into the earth, because they would not like that. And I think that they wouldn't even know why they're stopping you, but they would. And I think they'd be very, very much upset. So there's a lot of stuff for them to hide still. And soon they'll be coming out with the cover story that.
There would be a big one. I mean, based on what you're saying again, it's a shame. I think it would be great if we just knew what the real deal was, and if there is, and I hope to God there is an intelligent extraterrestrial force or something there that is making these people answer to them, because I honestly don't trust our world leaders with this type of information. I don't. They've never come clean with us. They've never been honest with us, and yet here there's this big escapade going down there, and we know so little about it. If it wasn't for people like you, we wouldn't know anything about it, really.
Yeah, another person that I would recommend people stay up with, who is watching this situation very carefully, is, of course, Joseph P. Farrell, who is one of the great minds of the alternative community, who is a great former professor from academia, who has his site, Giza Death Star. He's one that is keeping very close tabs on this situation. He has a lot of good sources also, and he does Antarctica update basically about once a month or so, and it's tremendous, the information that he's able to get. Very important to keep up on this, but also, though, I just recommend that people just do their own searches for what is happening, and they'll be amazed at the stuff that they find. It will be, because basically the only stuff that we can really trust is stuff that's just from people on the ground over there. I've seen some notes about the use of that a lot of the work that is being done is being compartmentalized so that workers don't see the entire picture of what they're working on.
Now, isn't that a typical MO for the FBI or the CIA or the NSA? Don't they usually do that as a protocol to make sure that nobody gets the whole picture?
Yes, but but right now, in the age that we're in, it's a lot more effective, because a lot of what they're using, what's been coming out, what I've been seeing a lot of in the comments and message boards and things that people say, is a lot of use of cryobots and tunnel boring drones. In other words, it seems like they're not letting workers go too far inside with just human presence. It seems like they're using a lot of automation, a lot of robots to go in and go into the deeper parts of what is beneath the Antarctica. And if anybody wants to see the technology they're using, you can just Google cryobots. Cryobots, amazing piece of technology. It's a robot that is created just for the purpose of burning through and drilling through ice and anything that is associated with ice. And it is able to, and it actually uses gravity to sink right through the ice and go as far down as it possibly can. And they're using these in conjunction with something called tunnel boring drones. And that's something I can't even find that actually exists, but that's actually, it's accompanying the cryobots, and they are doing the investigation, far below the ice as to what's going on. So it's possible they're not even allowing the human workers to get to the deeper parts of what they're allowed to look at. So
yeah, that's makes sense. That sounds like, again, their typical MO. Now, I've also heard about a team of scientists that disappeared for a little while, then reappeared, and were picked up by a pilot, and the pilot did report that this team looked scared to death. They didn't talk about anything, but they looked like they had the crap scared out of them. Have you heard that story?
Yeah, it seems to me like somehow they got to see the representative, maybe, of that is summoning these world leaders from all over the world and giving them the 411. That's what it sounded like to me, because it's because they were very scared. They weren't allowed to talk. and I'm sure they were right after that. They were signing all the non-disclosures in the world, probably a pile.
Yeah, right. That's for sure.
So one thing I wanted to tell people is that in order for them to stay up and to get up on what's happening in Antarctica, for what's really happening, one thing is you have to learn to do you have to collect the information on your own. You have to create your own web crawlers, your own web bots to collect information, and it's very simple to do that sort of thing. You can just when you set up a Google alert with the word Antarctica, spelling it correctly, it's got a C in it, Antarctica. You have just set up your own web crawler, and just set that out, and you will get with the help of Google, you will get an alert on everything in the entire sphere of information that mentions the word Antarctica. But then you also have to know parsing data, which is removing all the false stuff and only looking at the stuff that could maybe be true. And I will tell people immediately, all the information that you look at or that you collect or look at on Antarctica, you have to remove anything that has to do with global warming immediately. Just get rid of it. Global warming, environmental issues, climate related change, because as we've seen, these have been the themes that have been used for cover stories already for Antarctica, not just with John Kerry, but like long before that. They have used environmental issues, biodiversity, climate change as basically as cover for other activities. I would also just ignore anything that comes out of the UN or anything associated with the UN. Any institutional statements from NASA, from large institutions, just ignore them. And of course, anything from the fake news media, from CNN, New York Times, anything like that, just ignore it. It's worthless.
What about the Pope? What about if he comes out with something? We should probably.
Oh no, that's absolutely. In that case, you ignore the words, but you pay attention to the actions. What are they actually doing? That's the important thing with political leaders. You ignore their words, but you look at their actions, see what are they really doing? What are they actually doing? But for truth, actually, you look at anything that's coming out of the military. That can possibly be true. Coming out from the military, because the military is actually, and I'm talking about not just our military, but any military from any of the nations that's on the ground in Antarctica. What happens with the military is that they are very used to issuing statements from the ground. So very often they put out statements that have not been vetted by political leaders yet.
Oh, okay.
So, and they're the only ones who do that. It's just the military does that because they're men of action and they're used to getting things done, and they do that all the time. They put out statements that later on politicians have to say, no, don't pay attention. That never happened.
Sure.
And so pay attention to military statements and
That's great advice, John.
Yeah.
Really excellent advice.
Also, anything historical from Antarctica, historical information, that also pay attention to. Also, mining. Anything that has to do with mining will tend to be true because there is a lot of mining that is going on. Of course, of course, it's not necessarily for minerals and uranium and things like that, but it's actual mining for the entrance to hollow earth. So, and finally, also pay attention to anything from people on the ground, whether they are there or stopped being there or coming back from there. That's the most reliable, even though all this stuff is hearsay and is from second sources. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter because when we're living we're living now in a society of universal deception, then we have to go to these types of information to be able to rely on anything at all. That's the important thing.
Well, speaking of raw data, then tell us about the possibility of this one. We've heard about 30-mile wide motherships that have been partially cannibalized by whoever got here when they went to develop their civilization under the ice. And so maybe is that what these people are after from these world governments, and talk about getting technology out of there? Is it because they're going into these huge ships and trying to get things out that we can use?
I believe so. I believe they are after alien technology and being able to use that alien technology to probably for military purposes for the most part. And here's a statement that I saw. Here's a statement that I received from somebody who had come back. They say, "We're all. What is going on? What is going on in Antarctica? There are Nazi bases and 30-mile wide UFOs about a mile under the ice. Also, there are more pyramids under there and remnants of some civilization that appears to be both hybrid and alien in nature. Something incredible is going on down there. There is some type of Vedic civilization that existed probably not just in India, but in places worldwide. It is reasonable to think that many remnants of that same civilization are here in Antarctica. And now we only need to know, why are the elites leaking information about this now? The only answer is that there is an interdimensional Stargate portal down there, or some inner Earth entrance. And then it is signed, returned recently from Antarctica.
Whoa. You know, I believe that. And certainly the Nazi involved. We can't get rid of these Nazis, can we? They're just always there.
And there could be a Nazi base under there as well.
I think there is.
But it doesn't matter. But so what? That doesn't mean that's what they really found. That if there's a Nazi base under there, it's probably about 1/1000th of what is under there. You know what I mean?
Oh,
but they might try to use it. But they might try to use that as the overall story. That's the problem. Yeah,
we don't want that as the overriding story. It's just one piece of the story. So, yeah, I mean, the big part of the story in my mind is the extraterrestrial entity that's summoning everybody. If that's the case, that to me is the most fascinating part of all of this.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. But I think there was some raw data I saw the other day that what happened about, I think it was a couple of weeks ago, and these things are developing. This story is developing and changing all the time. I don't know if I have enough time to get this out, but I have another statement that I received from an individual, again, who was returning from Antarctica, and I don't believe he's going back. It says here, "I'm a civilian contractor for a defense industry company. We sell advanced hardware and electronic gear for military purposes. We handle a lot of logistics. I was having a few beers on the ground in Antarctica," and he says, close to McMurdo Station, "this Saturday when I got called in for an emergency. I didn't think much of it until we got there, and there were heavy hitter top brass all over the place." He's talking about military officials, colonels, and probably from colonels on. Oh, he says, "We work closely with the military, so when a bunch of colonels show up I never met, I knew there was serious business in the works. On top of that, some of the colonels looked very panicked."
Oh, boy. Well, now I'm going to ask you to stop right there as we are on the edge of our seats with you again, John. And we're going to have to take a very short commercial break and come back and finish this story. This is just incredible information that you're giving us about what's going on in Antarctica. Right in front of us, but not really. So we're going to find out the rest of the story. And everybody, again, visit our Facebook page, like us, follow us on Twitter. And fasten your seatbelts for the rest of this 30 minutes we've got coming up, everybody. It just gets better. You are listening to Supernatural Girlz Radio, and we will be right back. Welcome back, everyone, to Supernatural Girlz Radio. I'm your host, Patricia Baker, and I'm here with my co-host, PK, and our amazing guest tonight, one of our favorite people, John DeSouza, the X-Man, is here. And, John, you got to take us through the rest of the story. We're all holding our breath here.
Okay, like I was saying, I got a message from an unnamed individual who returned from Antarctica and is not going back. He is, and he said he's a civilian defense contractor for a defense industry company, and he doesn't name the company, but there's only a few out there. So he said he was basically somewhere close to McMurdo Station. He was working, and he was called in for an emergency, and he saw a lot of the top brass. And I can just read a short portion. I didn't know what the emergency was until I got there, and there were some heavy hitter top brass I've never seen. We work closely with the military, so when a bunch of colonels show up that I don't know, I know something serious is going on. But worse than that, some of them looked really panicked. I can't say too much else other than there was an instant order to move a giant ton of incredible state-of-the-art gear down into the bases. And also, all civilians were being evac'd immediately. That's all I know, but I figure it was worth mentioning because I've never seen anything like this before. I thought I'd pass it along. So that is his statement. And here's the thing. I've got 3 more messages corroborating exactly what he just said. There was a major evacuation, and I think it's out there. I think it's out there on the net too, as well, not mainstream stories, but some sort of alternative news stories too. They talk about this evacuation that occurred all of a sudden of all scientific personnel from the base. But the problem was, as they were going wheels up with all the scientific personnel and getting them out of there, which the entire existence of the base is for scientific purposes, supposedly.
Right.
And yet they were evacuating all the scientific personnel all of a sudden. And this happened on a Saturday. And then on a weekend, and then like some terrible emergency was happening. And there was a story, there was a cover story that there had been a crack in the ice that was a mile long that endangered the entire base. And that is why the scientists were all scientific personnel were being evacuated at that moment. The problem was with that story is that there's mile long cracks in the ice all the time, and it's all around the area, and it never affects the safety of the base at all. So that covers. Now the other problem is that as all the scientists, and this is in several other messages from people on the ground, as the scientific personnel and all support personnel were being evac'd, they could see that the military was coming in with more people and enormous equipment that no one could see. But there was just enormous pieces of equipment that were being brought in large scales as they were being evacuated. So the whole point of the evacuation was obviously false, because they were putting in more personnel than what were being evacuated at that moment.
So
Scary.
Absolutely.
It begs the question, though, John. Can we speculate? What do you think was going on?
Well, again, I will speculate with other messages that I have seen, because I've seen many messages on this incident. And by the way, my email is johntamabooks@gmail.com. That's John, T like Tom, A, M like Mary, A, books.com. It's the same as my website also, johntamabooks.com is my website. But anyway, it's another message. I don't have it in front of me at this moment, but another message said that he believes that they were bringing in, the reason that they were being evac'd, all the scientific material, is because something happened that necessitated bringing in some exotic military hardware, and that they were concerned that the scientific personnel would recognize what the hardware was and what it was for, and they didn't want that. That's why they had to get rid of everybody. And then that same person said that he believes, just from what he's heard on the ground, that what happened was there was a breach in containment pods that had been found far underneath the ice, and that those containment pods were breached in such a way that whatever was inside of them could actually be revived if they didn't solve that problem immediately.
It's scary. My goodness.
Wow. Wouldn't that have been something, huh? So they could have revived some entities that were there, possibly.
Yeah.
That would have been cool. I would have been up for that.
Yeah, but that same message, the individual who's not going back to Antarctica. His work term is done. He speculates that what if those containment pods had something in it that was several hundred feet tall, and
Good grief.
And that could be the reason why there was such an emergency to go fix whatever the problem.
Yeah, and
was.
why they were so panicked.
Exactly.
Several 100 feet tall.
Yeah.
You're talking like dinosaur size.
Exactly, because that's the kind of possibilities that we're looking at here. We're looking at something that could be an entire world unto itself under there, for all the nations to be cooperating so nicely. I mean, relatively nicely as they are so far. That means that they are thinking that their very survival is in question here.
Mm-hmm.
That's how I see
and at least life as we know it. So
Right.
that they're trying to control every aspect of this, which isn't going to be easy, obviously. It's going to take all of the manpower that they can muster, but more than that. I mean, they're encountering things that they've never seen before. So it's interesting, very interesting stuff. Like I said, I'm going to be up all night thinking about this, Tom. The other thing, though, I got to bring this up, because with the Nazi involvement, and possible Nazi something going on down there, and has possibly been there all this time, and possibly working with an extraterrestrial influence all this time, they must have had access to very advanced technology. And we do know that there were secret Nazi groups that did make their way down to Antarctica. And, I mean, who knows what they've been up to all this time, if this is in fact real and they weren't disappeared and they've been operating all of this time with these entities. I mean, that's a possibility too, right? That's not the whole story, as we mentioned, but it's a possibility.
Yeah. Well, I mean, any serious researcher, and when I say serious researcher, that I believe in, which of course is not in the mainstream, that would be alternative researchers, they all tend to believe that the Nazis were at one point accepted and being cooperated with by alien visitors, that they were working with them, probably at Antarctica, and they were working with the Nazis and providing them technology for these. Supposedly they had experimental UFOs, the Nazis did. As a matter of fact, there should have been absolutely no reason they lost World War II, absolutely no reason whatsoever, because they had the advanced weapons. They were already testing them. They had, it was next generation weapons, and they were far superior to anything anyone else had. And for something happened between Hitler and between the alien visitors, something happened to change their mind at the last minute, because it was like the rug just got pulled out from under the Nazis. Something completely changed their mind, because they were allowed to stay at Antarctica with whatever Nazi base they had, but Hitler himself had the rug completely pulled out from under him when he should have been winning the war at that point.
And good point. Yeah, that's a very good point.
It's hard to know why this happened, but whatever Nazi remnants were under Antarctica are very likely they could be there right now. But that doesn't mean that's definitely not the full story of Antarctica, of what's under Antarctica.
No, it's just a part of it. And excuse me, the reason I bring it up too as you and I have discussed, the Paulides cases that have been researched, he talks about these very strange urban disappearances where a lot of the people who go missing are young white men of German descent. And they're geniuses, a lot of them. I mean, it's just, this, to me, I just immediately made a connection between possibly advanced Nazi technology that they got from the ETs and these young men disappearing. I don't know what exactly the connection might be, other than they might have the technology to make these men go missing and nobody ever sees them again, or they find a body and they can't find a cause of death. It's just too strange. And again, why the men of German descent? So I don't know. I just got to throw it out there. Who knows?
Yeah, no, I'm
Maybe
glad you
somebody else
mentioned
can
that.
Make a connection with that.
I'm glad that you mentioned that, because one of my predictions I have for Antarctica is that it's very possible, if there is an alien intelligence that is pulling strings up there, as far as these world leaders and summoning them and then dismissing them. We discussed the rumors that when John Kerry, the Secretary of State, when he was summoned to Antarctica, sort of like as an emergency on election day, and then he just tore off after that and just showed up at Antarctica, and then he did something to displease somebody because he was expulsed, and he left, and just as he was leaving from Christchurch, New Zealand, which is basically that's the tunnel that people go in through and out of Antarctica. And just as he was leaving Christchurch, New Zealand, this tremendous earthquake happened. I mean, a really bad one. And it was just as he was basically going wheels up. And so that created a lot of rumors that people said shortly after that was a rebuke against John Kerry, Secretary of State at the time, that he should never, ever come back to Antarctica ever again. And I'm pretty sure you'll never see that. You'll never see that. So my point was that I think there's a chance that if there is some alien intelligence behind a lot of what's going on in Antarctica, that there's a chance we will see not individual but mass disappearances at Antarctica, of the kind that they won't be able to cover it up because people have their phones with them and people message stuff out, and they will not be able to cover it up. And I'm talking chance of maybe disappearances of entire squads of military troops and others, just total disappearance. And that's a very real possibility with what's going on out there. And I could see that happening pretty quickly, pretty soon.
Incredible. Now, some of the other messages that you've received, do you want to share those with us?
Yes, I'm looking at them now. There's many of them that are just people who have left from there and are just speculating on what they just went through. Because as you know, when they're there, they are very compartmentalized to whatever some small portion of a task is that they are doing. And there are great precautions taken so that they don't see anything else. And so so they come back with like sort of basically rumors that they collect
bits and pieces. Well, here's while you're looking through your list, here's a question from Neutron in our chat room. He wants to know, has MUFON ever received a sighting case file from somebody in Antarctica?
I'm sure that they have, because they deal with about 3,000 every month from there. The problem with that is that even if there were sightings for UFOs from Antarctica, there's so much military hardware going in and out of there, especially in the last couple of years, that UFO sightings would be almost ignored at this point, because you're talking about the latest technology that will be showing up there. You're talking about Harriers, helicopter. You're talking about every type of military, of Air Force hardware showing up over there, that I really think that UFO sightings would be chalked up to experimental Air Force vehicles and other types. That's what I think. Yeah.
Well, I'm trying to tune into whatever intelligence is down there, and I mean up there, and it's so huge and amazing and beyond anything I've ever felt. I can't even imagine being a military person who encounters this in physical reality. It's got to blow their minds.
Oh, absolutely. And you know, the most significant intel that we've gotten from the ground, of course, as many of us already know, would be Buzz Aldrin. When Buzz Aldrin, the Apollo 11 moon astronaut, was apparently summoned to Antarctica and went there and made a beeline over to those the forbidden, what we can call the forbidden sites, the pyramids and the entrance, to possibly the entrance to Hollow Earth, that cave that is about as tall as the Statue of Liberty, that's incredibly unnecessarily large, well, for human beings, unnecessarily large.
Right. And
we know what happened after that. We know that Buzz Aldrin was medically evac from there, and he sent out a tweet that said, "We are all in danger. It is evil itself." And there were pictures of the pyramids in that tweet. Then,
evil itself. Wow.
It is evil itself. Yeah, I didn't say it would be clear. I just said it was what it was. I mean, that's what he did. And he put pictures of the pyramids. The pyramids have been discovered over there, which people say are larger than the pyramids of Giza in Egypt. So then shortly after that, of course, then institutional defense comes into play, and Twitter and all of these. They say, oh no, those were fake. That was a fake tweet. That wasn't a real tweet. And people said, oh no, we examined the tweet. It wasn't real, but it was from his account because he has a verified account, and we know it was exactly from his account that it was sent. And not only that, I surveyed several people, and and even though there were reports that, oh no, this was some kind of a prank, somebody got access to his account and put this out, but why would they do it right at the moment that he's actually there in Antarctica at the pyramids, and they're going to put that out? I think that, and then you examine the tweet itself, and it has some issues of fakeness to it. But I believe that's because they created a fake version, and they uploaded the fake version in order to prevent people from seeing the real version that came out. And when I surveyed several people and said to them, if you got a hold of Buzz Aldrin's verified account and were able to tweet out a prank of some kind, what would you put in the prank? And I surveyed several people with that question, and they all said the same exact thing. They said, oh, I would just tweet out that how the moon landing was fake. And I apologized to everybody, and I'm sorry, but, I had to get out the truth. Moon landing was completely a fraud. And of course, if you think about it, of course that's what they would do. I mean, even if you were a young kid or an older person, I mean, and you got a hold of Buzz Aldrin's account, that's what you would do. You would put out a tweet that the moon landing was faked. You wouldn't, and I'll tell you what you wouldn't do. You wouldn't go put out some obscure pictures of some pyramids in Antarctica and then put out some obscure saying like, it is evil itself. We are all in danger.
Yes, exactly. What in the world was that?
Absolutely. And to me, that's the most significant report we've gotten from the ground in Antarctica, because it happened, it was real, it was somebody we knew was on the ground there, and we knew was there, and absolutely. And what I always tell people is just avoid the messages from the institution of NASA. So I won't believe anything NASA tells me about Antarctica, but an individual on the ground, an astronaut on the ground, I will believe. I'll believe
absolutely, absolutely. And now this does tie into some other raw data that PK and I have heard about involving Lucifer. that Lucifer has something to do with all of this. Have you heard that?
Are you talking about Lucifer, the telescope?
Fallen angel.
Okay. Okay, the fallen angel. Hey, I'm open to all possibilities at this point. I'm absolutely open to everything possible. Another message that I was reading from somebody who came back. He's very sent me a message, and again, my email is johntamaBooks@gmail.com. But this message, this guy sounds pretty shell-shocked. He doesn't give his name, and he says, "I just recently returned from Antarctica. The final push to deceive the world is here. The entire pre-flood world is under the ice of Antarctica. The water has hidden everything in the frozen deep." And he says, all science, all history that we know will be exposed as frauds. There is a reptilian agenda going forward to keep this information from us. And we need to break through to the truth. So,
well, that is quite a message.
Wow.
He's pretty shell-shocked.
I guess so. My goodness.
So there's a reptilian agenda to hide this from us. And then what's on the other side that's going to help us to get this exposed?
It could be. I'm hoping that it is the alien intelligence that is on our side, hopefully, that is underneath Antarctica. That is what I'm hoping. And
so the reptilian agenda could be part of what our military is all about, right?
Well, I believe the reptilian agenda is the globalist society that I write about in my book, The Para-Investigators, the epic, the elite powers in control, the global controllers who are trying to who have been keeping, ever since Tesla, have been keeping technology from the people that it could provide free energy, free everything basically, and just make people's lives, save millions of lives every year, and that's the reptilian agenda. Is that those elite powers in control there, who are the part of these bloodlines that are trying to control the world, and they control the institutions.
Oh, they do.
Yeah,
yes,
they
absolutely.
don't control us as individuals, though, but they do control these institutions that go around, that control the world, these central banks and things like that, that we voluntarily submit ourselves to those institutions as individuals. That's the problem.
Yes, exactly. That is the problem. Well said. So, oh my goodness. And then, of course, there's a lot of talk about how all the world powers are going to try to turn this whole thing around and make it look like there's some alien invasion and we're at risk from that, when that isn't the case at all. So, my God, there's just so much to consider.
Absolutely. It is a lot. And fake alien invasion is, we were warned about that by Werner von Braun, who was another Nazi who helped start NASA.
And also said that he got help from the ETs.
Yes, absolutely. And, so basically, even though the Nazis were discontinued, basically a lot of their assets were just changed over to the United States.
They certainly were, yes, and that is a for sure thing. Oh, John, this has been just a wonderful show. Thank you so much for blowing our minds here tonight. I know our audience is just doing what I'm doing and what PK is doing. We have a lot to think about thanks to you, and now we're going to be on the alert for all of this stuff coming from the ground, coming from people on the ground, and we have got to keep an eye on this one. We've got to have you back. So in the meantime, everybody, you keep staying tuned to Supernatural Girlz Radio. We'll be back next week with another exciting show. We have Butch Witkowski. He's going to be talking about the aliens who aren't so kind to us. We're going to hear about all of that from Butch next week. In the meantime, sleep tight, everyone. We'll see you on the Blue Highway. Good night.
Good night, and stay mesmerized by all this information. Whew.